everybody, it's Brian.
Jason.
And this is the Perfectly Screwed Podcast.
What episode is this?
90. This is episode 90.
It would probably be
Part 2.
It would probably be 100 if we haven't lost so many.
I agree, but you know.
Including this one.
Things happen. Mostly because of my dumbass shit. I blame this program, man. I really do.
Well, it only happens, though, when you don't delete content.
I had content still on here from John Dillinger, buddy. Like, that was like 6 months ago.
Right.
Yeah, I had 6 months worth of content on this computer, so no wonder it was not saving shit anymore.
But before I lose my train of thought, because
we're on the train.
Last episode, we were kind of finished talking about the halls of Amenti.
Oh, well,
regeneration
actually,
chambers.
I should tell them before we get into that. This is part 2 of the Emerald Tablet, so if you're listening to this, go back to episode 89 and listen to that one first, because that is part 1.
Right.
Okay, so now what were you saying?
Because the
halls of Amenti.
Yeah, and in part 1, you was talking about, like, the tunnels under the pyramids.
Yes.
And, like, how far they go and how immense they are.
Yes.
This is out of the book, The Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, which Billy Carson wrote this book.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's the Emerald Tablets, and he breaks down what a lot of it means.
Mm-hmm.
But it says here that the 4th century Greek historian Herodotus records one of history's first tour guides to the ancient and to the Greeks' mysterious Egypt. And this is in quotes. "This I have actually seen, a work beyond words, for if anyone put together the buildings of the Greeks and display of their labors, they would seem lesser in both effort and expense to this labyrinth. Even the pyramids are beyond words, and each was equal to many and mighty works of the Greeks. Yet the labyrinth surpasses even the pyramids."
Mm-hmm.
Labyrinth talking about these tunnels that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Thoth, the Atlantean, says the halls of Amenti are under the pyramids, and that's where the regeneration chambers are.
Well, deep in the halls, he says.
Deep, yes.
Yeah. So he said you have to go through this labyrinth to get to them, and they built it that way on purpose because they didn't want anybody finding this lab, which makes sense. Again,
right.
Like we were saying yesterday, and I don't know if it was recorded on the last episode or not, but if you take it to nowadays, right, and you take the mystical part out of all of this, and you just take it as scientific, which is what I try to do with most things, you got to think, we make labs also underground. Los Alamos has one, Area 51, we have secret government labs underground, and so do other countries. Russia probably has tons of them.
If people...
You can't get to them easily.
Like, if people honestly knew what was going on underneath them,
yeah.
Like, yeah, it's just hard to. It's because a lot of people are critical thinkers. They're not deep thinkers. You know what I'm saying? They don't sit around and think dumb, deep shit like I do.
Yeah, nor me. Yeah,
right.
I research this shit repeatedly.
Like this Earth. It's fucking humongous. Like, like if you were to try to dig a hole, through the ground and come out the other side, like, we're talking about a humongous fucking sphere.
Oh, yes.
And so, anything could be going on under the ground. And everything is.
Well, see, here's even more proof that they just came up with recently for what we're talking about the Emerald Tablets and about an advanced race that possibly was on this Earth beforehand. I say possibly because it's not exactly proven yet, but 90%, 99%, yes, it happened.
That's the thing about proof. Like, what more evidence do you have to see than some of the ancient structures that have been left behind, right? Mm-hmm. And again, like, Thoth, says the pyramids are 36,000 years old. Well, even mainstream academia will only have you believe they're 5,000 years old.
Right. And built in 25 years, nonetheless.
And just to look at the scale of these things and the fucking perfection of them,
Oh yeah.
right? And that we can't duplicate it right now.
No, we can't even make the material.
And this is what I say, dude. Like, if you're driving down the fucking highway and there's construction workers paving the road, dude, look at the fucking machinery. Look at the size and scope and scale of the machines that are being used to lay cheap asphalt.
Well, have you ever seen them lay a concrete floor like in a factory? They have these god-awful cranes to pick up these concrete blocks and set them into place. You're telling me a bunch of slaves pulled these stones that are bigger than the concrete blocks that I'm talking about,
Right.
up an incline with ropes,
Right.
and carved them
Carve them.
with stone chisels and a rock.
Which it's been...
And not only carved, they carved granite.
Well,
One of the hardest
it's
materials
been
to
proven
carve.
now, right? They're saying it happened in a Bronze Age,
Yes.
and the stone that the pyramids are made out of, the granite,
Doesn't even come from that age.
you can't cut it
Right.
with bronze
Yeah.
or copper.
No. Well, you couldn't cut it anyways. You couldn't cut it with a stone chisel. Because granite's hard as hell.
You have to have granite or something harder.
Yeah, and you're not cutting it with
Right.
stone.
And so, right.
It's
and
just,
so,
it's preposterous.
so I guess my thing is the proof that there was an advanced civilization prior to us is there.
No, yeah.
It's just that
They don't want to
are
see
you
it.
allowing yourself to be brainwashed into believing that that's not? Are you believing
Right.
mainstream academia?
Right. Well, here's some more proof, and this comes from Discovery and from archaeology.com, and it says right now the planet is in the Anthropocene period, which is characterized by the widespread dominance of human beings. It is also characterized by an unprecedented spike in airborne carbons. Now, 56 million years ago, the planet went through the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum period, which was extremely high temperatures around the world. 70 degrees Fahrenheit at the poles. The interesting thing is, there is also, at this time period, evidence of heightened carbon fossil levels in the air at the same time, higher than what we have now, and there is no known logical environmental reason for it.
Yeah, suggesting that they were driving around in cars and using gas just like us.
Right. So right now they can't figure out why 56 million years ago there was this huge upspike in carbon. A lot of them are trying to say it was just natural progression.
How many years ago?
From the heat, 56 million. So right after the dinosaurs, or
right
about 50 million years after
right.
the dinosaurs, somewhere there.
Think about that.
Right.
Think about 56 million years
ago. Right.
And so if there was an advanced civilization, let's say at least advanced as we are, 56 million years ago,
right?
Then how many has there been?
Well, this is the thing. People say, well, you don't find any fossil record of them. But you might not. It depends.
Right.
I mean, it depends on what cataclysm happened to destroy that civilization, whether or not you would find fossil record of that particular species. And we do find fossils of very old human beings, and who's to say it's not them? I mean, we just assume they're Neanderthals or what have you. We don't know how intelligent they were because all you're looking at is bones.
Right.
Right, and to say they were a different species than us doesn't mean they were dumb either.
And to find, intelligence, because, like Billy Carson talks about, he thinks basically our cousins before humans, Neanderthals, and Cro-Magnon and stuff, he makes the argument that they were actually smarter than us because they were more in tune with the earth and how shit really works, right? They're more in tune to the earth and the frequencies and the vibrations, and the example that he always gives is like if a tsunami's coming in, all the wild animals, like, they're gone. Days, sometimes weeks in advance before that fucking tsunami comes and hits land. They're up in the hills and the mountains. They're moving inland. They know it's coming. They're in tune with what's going on the earth, where fucking human beings are standing on the beach taking a selfie while the goddamn tsunami comes in and fucking...
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we're completely out of touch.
Also, you got to think about this. To find evidence of this advanced culture, if it was wood or rocks, you wouldn't know they were advanced because it would just look like wood and rocks. If you found pieces of plastic, the likelihood of finding anything technological would be insane because it would be evaporated.
And that's the thing, like...
It would be destroyed instantly.
Like, if you look at the only thing that stands the test of time is stone.
Right.
Like, our civilization, if we were to go down, right? I mean, in 1,000 years, there would be nothing left. In 1,000 years, all the wood and all the metal and all the wiring and all our phones and all this shit, in 1,000 years, is gone. It has eroded away or rotted away, or there's no evidence left of it. I mean, it's conceivable that in 2,000 years' time, we would be literally wiped completely from existence. You would have no idea that our civilization was even here.
Right.
We have nothing.
And finding us might be impossible.
Yeah, because there's nothing to find.
Well, it depends on what hit us.
That's why...
if it was a large enough comet, it could literally vaporize you completely, including your bones.
Absolutely.
So you wouldn't find anything. But we know for a fact also that there was much more advanced cultures than what we think of just from evidence we are finding.
Well, yeah, because they built their buildings, right, with stone, with granite. That's going to literally can withstand the test of time, maybe forever.
Well, also natural rocks. The way they built the pyramids, the stones they used conduct electricity.
Right.
And there was reasons they used those stones. Granite is an insulator. The limestone on the outside reflects the sun. The limestone on the very outside actually absorbs sunlight like a solar panel.
Right.
So it was almost like a natural solar panel.
It was a wireless, power plant.
Correct.
Right.
But I mean, even the stuff we're finding that we know for a fact, see, we thought that people were not as advanced as they actually were. Because we're finding things like Antikythera. You know what the Antikythera is, right? They found it off the coast of Greece, and they realized that it predicted the eclipse. It's a miniature computer that the Greeks actually built around 100, 150 BC.
Have you ever... There's a guy that took what they have...
Yes.
...and made it. Remade it.
Yeah, he remade it.
He didn't remake it out of that, but he, used the design of the Antikythera device, and... Yeah, dude, it's insane.
Yeah, it predicts the orbit of the Earth.
Everything.
Yeah,
the sun,
everything.
The moon, the planets.
It was
charts
a very advanced computer, and we don't have all the pieces to it.
It's incredible.
The only thing we found was the top dial of this thing, and we can figure out what it does.
Like it's crazy. It's down to there's a little mechanism in there that shows the wobble of the fucking moon.
Yeah,
it's crazy shit, dude.
Yeah, and they said the Greeks would never have invented that in 150 BC. They couldn't have.
Right. Well,
they didn't have the technology. Well, that shows you right there that we do not know exactly what technology is out there still hidden in the earth that we haven't found yet.
And they found that underwater.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that, to me, is huge evidence that there were other advanced civilizations by all the shit they find underwater.
Yeah, they find shit every day.
Pyramids, buildings, roads, all kinds of structures. You know what I'm saying? Well, they didn't build the shit underwater.
Right.
They built the shit on the coast of water.
Right.
And some kind of cataclysm, literally.
Well, let's look just at Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe?
Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe, yes. That they just found in Turkey, and they're still unearthing it. They don't even know how big this fucking thing is.
No, and that place is crazy because it was buried, and they're saying it was deliberately buried.
Yeah, it was deliberately buried, and it sets the time back at least 10,000 to 13,000 years past when we thought humans weren't even doing this. According to...
It's dated to at least 11,000 BC.
Yes.
Which is 13,000 years ago.
Right.
Which
and according to
blows up
archaeologists...
mainstream.
Right, destroys mainstream archaeology, because they said at this point, we were still wandering around in the forest, hunter-gatherers, wandering around in caves.
Yeah.
We weren't even intelligent enough to build something like this.
No, it was basically 4,000 or 5,000 BC.
Right.
When we started...
That's what they said.
Right.
Right, but this sets it way back. Now they're trying to say that these hunter-gatherers just randomly were walking around and one day they just decided to build a temple. What?
Yeah, and dude, these are 19-foot humongous granite stones.
Yeah, granite stones,
and
not found in Turkey, mind you.
And they have carved. You know what I mean? And not even carved it like they have they're like 3-dimensional.
Yeah,
like
figures out.
Figures like yeah. They didn't chisel that away.
No,
with fucking chicken bone and.
No, according to them, we couldn't even. We weren't even using wheels at this point. Right. We weren't using tools. We weren't doing nothing. Are you insane?
And that's fine. Like, my thing is, that's fine. If you're saying that human beings were that at that time, that's fine. But that means somebody built this. If you're saying we didn't do it, you know what I mean? Because if we're hunter-gatherers, we can't build this. Somebody did.
Right. But Graham Hancock put it interestingly enough. He said something about it which really resonated with me, and I was reading. He said, well, who's to say that there weren't hunter-gatherers, but that an advanced culture lived right beside them?
Right.
He said,
of course.
We do now.
Right.
He said, we're advanced,
Absolutely.
And if you go to certain islands or certain places, there's still hunter-gatherers.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. There's Aborigines in Australia living right beside modern man, and they still live out in the wild as hunter-gatherers.
Well,
but you still have modern people, and there's some islands where the whole island is still hunter-gatherers, and they know nothing about technology.
Have no idea.
Have no idea. They're still hunter-gatherers. So who's to say the hunter-gatherers weren't here? Yes. But there wasn't, like you said, an advanced culture that was living right beside them that was building things and doing things.
Well, I mean, evidence tells us there was. That's exactly what was happened.
And that evidence supports what we're talking about, the Emerald Tablets, which is that what Thoth said. He said there was a race that came down here, and said, we're going to make humans our slaves. Okay, and they engineered us, the humanoids, which were hunter-gatherers, to be the servants to this advanced technological race.
Yep. And they basically showed us civilization.
Yes.
How to run a civilization, right?
Well, they set it off,
but
before they could,
it's being ran, like you just said, we're the workers.
Mm-hmm.
It's being ran to their design.
Yes.
Right? That's why we're in the Matrix. That's why we're locked in the Matrix, right? That's why money rules. You know what I'm saying? And it's basically all being funneled to like 100 families. Right? That run everything.
Right.
The entire world.
Right. But look, that's what backs up the Emerald Tablets. When you find things like this, it backs up exactly what he was saying. There had to be an advanced civilization here to create the things we keep finding. Okay? Yes, I'm not saying there wasn't hunter-gatherers. And if you look at even other ancient religious texts, the Torah, the Bible itself, they all go back and say they're all telling you the same story. If you look at the Emerald Tablets and you look at the Bible, They're very similar.
Oh, well, yeah. The Bible,
You just change a few words and you got the same thing.
well, the Bible's just an eclectic work of ancient text.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, the Bible is not the Word of God.
No.
No, it was put together very brilliantly
By the Roman Catholic Church.
by really powerful motherfuckers, right?
In fact, the first canonized Bible, they picked and choose what they put in there and what to throw out.
Dude, yeah, because
And that was the first time they changed.
How many apocrypha books? Like, how many
Yes.
books have been that? Yeah, were left out.
Well, there's a whole series of writings about when Jesus was a teenager and was in the land of Kim, the land of Kim and Egypt. And that's where he spent his whole teenage years because they were fleeing from Herod. So they went to Egypt. And if you look at the Emerald Tablets...
He was in Egypt, and he left Egypt and went to Tibet.
Yes. But
then from Tibet
he came
to
back.
India.
Yeah, and then he came back to Jerusalem.
Back to Egypt, right.
Right. But if you look at that, when he was doing this, if you find that book, which you still can find some translations of it, it talks about how he studied religion in Egypt, how he studied religion in Tibet, how he studied the religious masters in India, and took all of this, and all of a sudden when he came back, he knew he was the son of God. Or the son of a God, should I say.
Right.
Right. And many people, and in the Emerald Tablets and in this book that chronicles, Jesus' teenage years, it talks about where he actually met Thoth and went down and studied with the beings of light.
Right.
And found out he was a being like Thoth that was from the beings of light that had originally came down here and started the whole process.
Right.
So, yeah, he wasn't the son of the God. He was a son of a God.
Well,
Or one of these beings that were, again, much more technologically advanced that could beat death and had all of this technology.
Right. And when you talk about the gospel, right, the good news.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what was the good news? Jesus came to tell you that he is a son of God, and that so are you. That's simple.
It's interesting when they made the first canonized Bible. That's when they changed the term Elohim to Elohim. Elohim is singular in Hebrew and means a singular masculine God. Elohim is plural and means masculine gods.
Right.
So the original translation is the gods made man.
Well, yeah.
In their image.
That's what's crazy about the Bible.
And they changed it because they didn't want
more
than one God, because then they couldn't control the people like they wanted to.
The thing about the Bible and the reason why you can't take it as the Word of God, and the reason why I would argue that it has been and is still being used as a tool of mind manipulation is because what you just said. The original translation doesn't say, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. No, it says, in the beginning, the gods
Created the heavens.
They are
and the
lying to you in the very first sentence of the book.
Right.
The very first sentence.
Well,
that's accidentally on purpose.
On the whole Bible thing, real quick, before we get back to the tablets, I saw something on a video once, and it was actually very interesting to me. This guy was talking to this other guy about Satan. And he said, well, what is Satan? And he said he's the father of lies and the biggest liar in the universe. And the other guy said, well, then how do you know you follow God? And the guy said, well, I have a book that shows it. And the guy that was talking to him said, well, yeah, but wouldn't it be the most and biggest lie in the universe to write a book that made the bad guy, or the good guy, the bad guy, and made the bad guy the good guy?
Right.
And the guy who was, talking that was a Christian, he goes, well, that doesn't make sense. It's the Word of God. And he goes, well, how do you know? And he goes, because God wouldn't lie to us. And he goes, yeah, but Satan would. And would be the biggest lie in the universe? The best way to con you would be to make you think that he's the hero of the story when he's the enemy.
Right.
And that makes actually perfect sense.
100%.
If Satan wanted to lie, what would be the easiest way to lie to you and get him to serve you? By writing a book that made him good and the other guy evil.
Right. And that's exactly what you can make the argument that's exactly what's gone on. No, it's absolutely insane, dude. Like, to me, it never made sense. Like, the Word of God, like, so God writes English? Right? Like, that doesn't even... What do you mean, the Word of God? The fuck does that mean?
Right.
Of course it's the goddamn Word of God. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we're all gods.
Well, it's the Word of God interpreted by Moses. Let's just start out there.
By whoever, you know what I'm saying?
The only person that wrote any of this, let's be honest, in the Old Testament was Moses. All the way up to Exodus, it was Moses. You know, he wrote about Adam and Eve. He wrote all of this.
But it's all...
So really, it's the word of Moses if you want to be
It's
technical.
a metaphor. It's a metaphor. It's a symbolic message. It's a fucking incredible work of literature.
Well,
it really is.
It's funny to me that all of these...
And there is a truth. There is a truthful message throughout the Bible. You know what I'm saying? But you have to know how to read it and see the signs and the symbols and know that it's not the word. Like, to me, that's the first... If you want to make the Bible extremely interesting for you, you know what I mean? Then erase out of your mind that it's the Word of God.
Right.
Because it's not. It's a story. It's literally called the greatest story ever told.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, we're going to end it right here because we're getting close to 30 minutes. But stick around because obviously this is going to be part 3 and possibly 4 and God knows how many parts we're going to get into this. But we're going to keep on with this in episode 91. Hope you enjoyed episode 90 and we will see you next time.
Later.